Divine text. 5. This refers to one who does not obey him. 6. This means that do not think that the day of reward and punishment is distant. 7. This phrase refers to death. 8. It means that the rich and powerful people should help the poor and the weak. 9. The above passage is quoted from Mustadrak Naj al-Balagha, Alama Hadi Kashif al-Gita, Najafi. 10. The 10th of Muharram. Shares. Appendix 2. The robustness of the views of all al-Bayt, in Islamic thoughts. Appendix 2. The robustness of the views of all al-Bayt, in Islamic thoughts. Sheikh Abbas Ali Baraki. Muslims have always discussed and researched Islamic beliefs and they will continue to do so. Along with the efforts made in this search there arose differences of belief, and many sects came into being. But all the sects are unanimous in the belief that the source of Islam is the Quran and traditions. In spite of being united in the source of religion, there are many reasons for these differences, among which the following bear great importance. 1. Difference in the method of debate and derivation of Islamic laws. Ijtihad. 2. Innovations and erroneous interpretations. 3. Ignorance and unawareness of religious texts. 4. Tribal differences and political aspirations. 5. Fabrications of traditions by Muslim scholars of Jewish and Christian origin to distort Islam. We have no hesitation to confess that many different religious views and opinions arose during the very lifetime of the Holy Prophet S, but those differences did not reach the extent that it could have taken the shape of a religion because the Holy Prophet S was there, and he used to put a stop to such views, so that they may not spread further. Due to his wise statesmanship, the Muslim society had become such a cradle of love and brotherhood that its equal could not be found anywhere else in history. In the lifetime of the Prophet, there were differing views among the children of the companions as regards the matter of predestination and free will, and it had gone to a level that debates used to be held on this topic. When the Holy Prophet S heard this, he came out of his house and restrained them from it. This is mentioned in books of traditions. For example, Ahmad ibn Hanbal has narrated from Amr ibn Shu'aib from his father that one day the Messenger of Allah came out to find people in the masjid discussing predestination. The narrator says that when the Holy Prophet S heard them, his face became red like pomegranate seeds, and he asked what was wrong with them and why they were countering one verse against another. He said, "Nations preceding you were also destroyed because of this." 1. The fundamentals of Islamic beliefs are mentioned in the Quran and traditions. However, after the departure of the Messenger of Allah, some questions arose whose answers were not present clearly in the Quran and traditions. It was therefore felt that there was a need for derivation and deduction. And the right of ijtihad in the Sharia and matters of beliefs was entrusted to the scholars of religion. Fuqaha. That is the reason we find differences of opinion among the companions, as regards some matters of the religious belief. There is a great dissimilarity between the differences during the Prophet's lifetime and those after his departure. During his lifetime, when a difference arose, he used to issue his verdict about it and resolve the matter. 2. However, this did not continue after he departed. The ruler used to favor certain companions. Therefore, the difference did not end because the views of these companions did not tally with the opinions of other companions. As examples, may consider these instances. 1. The matter of successorship of the Holy Prophet S and Imamate. 3. 2. The issue of killing the apostates and those who refused to pay zakat. Thus, these problems led to the creation of various schools of scholastic theology and beliefs, and the views used to prove beliefs that were responsible for the creation of these different schools are as follows. 1. Deduction based only on religious texts. Ahmad ibn Hanbal was an imam of this line of thinking, and today this approach is adopted by the al-Hadith who consider that their sole responsibility is guarding the heritage of traditions. They are not concerned with the depth of the meanings of narrations and whether they are authentic or not. In the present age these people are called Salafi. The Hanbalis followed this method in deriving Islamic practical laws also. According to their view, it was not allowed to contemplate and ponder upon religious problems and to question them as heresy. It is heretical to have discussions on these matters. They considered discourses of traditions necessary for themselves, but, as far as discussions on them was concerned, it was absolutely forbidden. They considered only their method to be the correct obedience, and all types of contemplation and pondering to be heretical. All their efforts were aimed at only collection and compilation of all the traditions that have come on the matters of beliefs etc. They also explained the meanings of their words and compiled the chains the narrators of traditions. Anything beyond this was neither necessary nor permissible. Thus, the same approach is adopted in the books of Bukhari, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Ibn Khuzaymah Baihaqi and Ibn Qutayba. The level of radicalism of these people is evident from the way they have prohibited scholasticism and logical thinking in matters of belief. Ibn Qutayba even compiled a treatise, Prohibition of Opinion in Scholasticism. Single quote. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal used to say that one who practices scholasticism can never get salvation and such a person is always having hypocrisy. He has severely condemned scholasticism, and the level of his extremism can be gauged from the fact that he broke off relations with Harith Muhasibi, although the latter was a pious and a religious person. The reason for this conflict was that Harith had a written book against heretics. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, while criticizing this book said, "It is regrettable that in your book you have first described the heretics and then you have refuted them. In the process, you gave people the chance to read about the views of heretics and urged them to think upon them, which makes the people inclined to have discussions about it and to express their views." Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal was such a radical that he used to say, "Scholastic theologians are irreligious." Zafran says that Imam Shafi'i has given the verdict that scholastic theologians should be whipped and then they should be taken around and exhibited in the tribes so that people come to know that this is the punishment of those who abandon the Quran and traditions and follow scholasticism. The Salafis have followed this same idea right from their inception. They have always claimed that the companions were more aware of the facts in comparison to other people as regard religious matters, and that they were also more knowledgeable about the arrangement of the words. Despite this, they have maintained silence on various matters because they knew that those matters would give rise to evils, and the Holy Prophet had also said, "Those who argue are destroyed, those who argue much are destroyed, those who argue much are destroyed." 4. The Salafis believe in corporeality and comparison in relation to Allah. According to them, predestination means that man does not have any free will, and that he is absolutely helpless in every way. 5. This group allows imitation taqlid in matters of faith and considers the contemplation and deliberation of rules to be unlawful. Dr. Ahmad Mahmud Sabihi writes that neither is imitation possible in matters of faith, nor is it allowed. Whereas Ubaydullah ibn Hassan Ambari in Hashiyah and Taylima 6 and also Razi 7 in Al-Masul has opposed this, while the majority of the scholars believe that imitation is unlawful in matters of faith. In Shar Tartib, Ostad Abu Ishaq writes that the scholars of truth are unanimous that imitation is not allowed in matters of faith. Imam al-Harmain has written in his book Ash-Shamil that except for the Hanbalis, no one believes in the lawfulness of imitation in principles of faith. But Imam Shawkafi, differing from the majority, has stated that to learn about the principles of belief through proofs and arguments is so difficult that not everyone is capable of resorting to. After that, Shawkafi has refuted the arguments of scholars who do not accept imitation in matters of faith. We are astonished at this essay of Shawkafi. He says that to believe in the fundamentals of religion on the basis of logic and reasoning is an injustice on this ummah. It is a responsibility beyond their capacity. Since many companions did not reach the level of legal deduction ijtihad, they adopted imitation taqlid in the matter of beliefs also. For the majority of the people of the ummah, it is unlawful to employ logical reasoning in the matter of principles of belief, and it will lead to ignorance and deviation. 8. Those having this view consider the study and teaching of logic unlawful, and do not think that it will lead one to gain divine recognition, while the science of logic is a science of proofs and reasoning, and it contains the method of arrangement of evidence. The basic principles of this science were mentioned by Aristotle in his book, Organon, and he named them criteria. Among the experts of logic and philosophy in the Islamic world were Farabi, Ibn Sina, Ghazali, Ibn Majah, Ibn Tufayl and Ibn Rushd. To refute the science of logic, the group of the followers of tradition. Al-Hadith argued that if the science of logic had helped these logicians and philosophers to reach a correct conclusion, there would not have been differences among them. Since there were wide differences in their views and opinions, it cannot be taken as a criterion of truth and falsehood. This group had such a belief during the stage of its inception, and it severely condemned scholasticism and the science of logic. However, later it was compelled to concede its stand to some extent. For example, when we look at a later follower of this school, Ibn Taymiyyah, we see that he is somewhat inclined to scholasticism. He did not consider scholasticism as absolutely unlawful. He says that scholasticism becomes lawful in certain situations, and he himself took the help of scholasticism to refute the views of atheists and apostates. 9. Though Ibn Taymiyyah agreed to scholasticism, he continued his opposition to the science of logic. He also wrote a book Refutation of Logicians. Followers of Ibn Taymiyyah say that the French philosopher Descartes 1596-1650, instead of accepting the logic of Aristotle, formulated some principles of recognizing the right and wrong. He had claimed that one who followed these principles shall be safe from contemplative mistakes and shall reach certainty. But see what happened. Like the logic of Aristotle, the principles of Descartes also could not save one from committing mistakes in mental deductions, and even today man still needs maturity of thought like he was hundreds of years ago. 10. Many Islamic thinkers dislike the logical method. Thus, Imam al-Ghazali, in Tahafat al-Falsafa refuted the views of philosophers through arguments. The basic premise of Ghazali's book is that one cannot rely wholly on reason, because just as reason is constructive it can also cause destruction. Imam Ghazali proves that in the matters of divinity and ethics, the most that reason can do is to provide a conjecture, but it cannot create certainty. Ibn Rushd al-Andalusi died 595 AH wrote Tahafatu Tahafa in refutation of Ghazali, in which he rebutted the views of Ghazali and said that there is no contradiction between correct reasoning and authentic texts. He explained his contention further in his book, Fasl al-Makal Fima Bain al-Hukma Wash Sharia min al-Itsal. It may be called force of circumstances or a good coincidence that the view presented by Ibn Rushd was the same as that which Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned in his book Mawafiyah Sari al-Makul li Sahih al-Manakul. We are surprised how Ibn Taymiyyah adopted two contradictory stands. In every manner, whether it is the al-Hadith from al-Sunnah or the Akhbaris 11 from the Shias, they all follow the apparent meanings of the traditions, and try their utmost to avoid inferences and analogy. Rai and Qiyas. 12. These days the Salafi and al-Hadith ideology is widespread in Saudi Arabia. Najd. Some of their groups are also present in Pakistan, Iraq, Syria, and Egypt. 13. 2. Deduction based only on logical reasoning. Reason and logic is given utmost importance in the Mu'tazili faith. People of this school were known in history as the people of Rai, and people of monotheism and divine justice. The founders of this school of thought were Wasil ibn Atta 80-131 AH and Amr ibn Ubaid Misri 81,144 AH. At that time Mansur Dawaniki was the reigning caliph. After Wasil and Amr, this school was led by Ahmad ibn Abi Dawood, the vizier of Mamun Rashid. Qadi Abd ul-Jabbar ibn Ahmad Hamadani died 415 AH also played an important role in spreading this ideology. Natsum, Abu al-Hindil, Alaf, Jahiz Jabiyan also held a special position in Mu'tazila sect. Because the Mu'tazilites accorded utmost importance to reason, they relied on logical reasoning for the interpretation and understanding of the divine reality, attributes of Allah, and the Sharia, and they were certain that it is impossible to understand and derive religious concepts without the use of logica one reasoning. Mu'tazila has become extinct since a long time, but we can see the traces of Mu'tazila views in the Zaydiyya and Abadi sects. These two sects are influenced by Mu'tazilite views in several matters of faith. Mu'tazila had many common points with the Shia school of thought also. The al-Hadith used to refer to the Mu'tazila as Qadariyya, because the latter believed in absolute free will man. The important book of this sect is Qadi Abd ul-Jabbar's Shar Usul al-Khamsa, and they also accord significance to Risala al-Wat Tawheed, which was compiled by the well-known Mu'tazili scholars Hassan Basri, Qasim ar Rasi and Abd ul-Jabbar ibn Ahmad. The Mu'tazila used to interpret in a new way the verses that were against their beliefs, therefore they were considered among the people of interpretation to will. Mu'tazila have rendered a great service to Islam. The Mu'tazila confronted with absolute determination the intellectual storm that arose against Islam due to the popularity of Greek philosophy during the early period of the Abbasid reign. Even the cruel and tyrannical kings like Mamun and Mu'tasim could not remain without being influenced by Mu'tazila. However, during the reign of Mutawakkil, the Mu'tazila school began to decline because the rulers had turned against them, and the al-Hadith were laying verdicts of infidelity, deviation and transgression against them. Therefore, this school gradually became extinct. It is also incorrect to call the Mu'tazila innocent or suppressed because they also had severely persecuted their opponents during their period of dominance. After that, whatever happened can be called fruits of deeds. For those who like to know about further details, they can refer to books on this subject. 14. Mu'tazila had 5 fundaments of faith. 1. Tawhid. It means that Allah is purified of the qualities of the creatures, and it is impossible to see Him with one's eyes. 2. Adl. It means that the Almighty Allah is not unjust on the people, and He does not compel them to disobey Him. 3. Al-Manzila Bainal Manzilatan. It means that one who commits a greater sin kabira is neither a believer nor an infidel, he is a transgressor fasik. 4. Wad o Wa'id. It means that it is necessary that Allah should fulfill His promise of paradise to the believers and the promise of hell to the disbelievers. 5. Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi, Anil Munkar. It means that when tyrannical rulers do not give up oppression, it becomes necessary to campaign against them. Beliefs of Ash'ari and Maturidi. The Ash'ari faith, which is represented by the Al-Sunnah wa al-Jama'ah today, is a moderate school of thought between the Mu'tazila and al-Hadith. 15. The founder of this school, Abu al-Hasan Ash'ari, died 324 A.H., was Mu'tazili in the beginning. He had followed Mu'tazil beliefs for 40 years. But in the year 300 AH in the Basra Jame Masjid, he repented for being a Mu'tazili and adopted the faith of Al-Sunnah wa al-Jama'ah. He chose a path between al-Hadith and Mu'tazila. Although he practically imparted strength to the al-Hadith, for this purpose he employed the logical method of Mu'tazila. Due to this style of his, the Mu'tazila opposed him whereas the al-Hadith also did not support him. They are not prepared to forgive him even to this day. They accuse him of deviating from the basic principles and many al-Hadith with extremist stand have issued the verdict of infidelity against him. During the time of Ash'ari, Abu Mansur Maturidi Samarkandi died 333 AH also was acting on these lines. Maturidi is also considered an imam of al-Sunnah in the matters of belief. Although both Ash'ari and Maturidi were imams of al-Sunnah in the matter of belief, their opinion is not the same in some matters. Some people have mentioned that there are 11 points of differences between their views. 16. Ash'ari is very particular to avoid interpretation of the apparent meanings of the words of Quran and Hadith. He used to fall into the debasement of simile and corporeality without any hesitation, and in the issue of predestination, he used to take the cover of bil-Qasab by acquiring, whereas other sects used to consider it a failure on his part to understand the problems of faith and thoughts. In any case, Ash'ari remained adamant against the faith of al-Hadith, and gradually the mischief spread all over the Islamic world. 17. 3. Gnostic and Neo-Platonist way of reasoning. Among the Islamic schools, there was a school that subjected the problems of scholastic theology on the criterion of research and then chose the view that were in consonance with the Gnostic way of thinking. This school was completely different from the philosophical and scholastic sects based on logical reasoning. The founder of this school was Hallaj. 18. Imam al-Ghazali holds a very important position in this school. He has written in Al-Jam al-Ulum, and LLM ul-Kalam that it is the method of Kasa special. Apart from this, they have a common style of thinking. The Amma and their followers know evidence, but they are deprived of logical deduction. 19. Dr. Sulayman Dina has written a book entitled, Al-Haqiqa fi Nizar al-Ghazali, on Ghazali and other Sufi schools of thought, criticizing the view of Ghazali. Drive. Ahmad Mahmud Sabihi has written that Ghazali issued a verdict regarding the reality of being of the Almighty, that it is unlawful for the public to contemplate on this matter. Though we have nothing against this verdict of Ghazali, the extremism of Ghazali is such that he included even the litterateurs, grammarians, traditionists, jurisprudents and scholastic theologians among the public, and issued the verdict that, the firmly rooted in knowledge, were only those Gnostics who are fully immersed in divine recognition, who keep away from carnal desires. This statement of Ghazali is the proof for those who claim that Ghazali had a completely different view regarding Illuminism and profusion, and as a result of having this view, Abu Hamid Ghazali is called Hujjat ul-Islam. After that, Dr. Sabihi questions the justifiability of keeping out the jurisprudents, exegetes, and scholastic theologians from the ranks of the firmly rooted in knowledge, and regarding only the Sufis as being in that rank. Does it not increase the scope of profane talks of mystics? While the fact is that the principles of Illuminism and Gnosticism are as harmful to Islamic beliefs as the self-made problems of the scholastic theologians. 20. Despite this, the Sufi school of thought has left a considerable heritage regarding Islamic beliefs. 21. 4. Perceptive and experimental deduction. It was an absolutely new type of thinking with regard to Islamic beliefs, and it is mostly followed by scholars and intellectuals who are more influenced by the Western world. These scholars and intellectuals come from Egypt, India, Iraq, and those countries that had been British, American, French and Japanese colonies. People who follow this style of thinking have a special opinion regarding the means of human recognition, and they rely more on perceptive and experimental deductions. In their view, the ancient method of thinking and the logic of Aristotle does not have any importance. They have tried to subject metaphysics and divine recognition to scientific and experimentative criterion. 22. The scholars of this school interpret divine miracle in material terms and say that prophethood is nothing but human perfection. Some researchers have compiled whole books on this style of thought. 23. 4. Example: the writings of Sir Saeed Ahmad Khan. 24. Sir Saeed has proved himself a fan of the Western world in his tafsir of Quran. His tafsir is more in consonance with modern scientific discoveries. Though Sir Saeed cannot be called the main standard bearer of this school of thought, it must be mentioned that he has adopted an apologetic attitude with regard to the Quran and has gone to great lengths to prove that the Holy Quran is in complete support of modern science. Tough. No particular boundary can be fixed for this school of thought. It is perfectly reflected in different religious issues and modern scientific essays. 25. 5. Conventional reasoning. The basic elements of conventional reasoning are present in the teachings of all al-Bayt, without which it is not possible to understand the Islamic beliefs correctly. This method of reasoning is based on the Quran and Sunnah, as the Holy Quran says, "The nature made by Allah in which He has made men. There is no altering of Allah's creation." That is the right religion, but most people do not know. 30. It is announced in this verse that the best way to obtain the understanding of divine realities, Ma'rifah 26, is through the nature of man. And the first condition for nature is that it should not have been changed by adverse social conditioning and poor upbringing, and not contaminated by succumbing to selfish desires and useless debates and discussions. The majority of people cannot realize this fact because their nature has become clouded by prejudice, and their obstinacy is a hurdle in understanding realities. Traditions have also explained the significance of a perfect nature. The Holy Prophet says, "Every child is born on human nature. Then its parents make it a Jew, Christian or Magian." 27. The conventional method includes all logical, religious texts, intuition, Illuminism and scientific methods. The specialty of this school is that it does not rely on only one method. Rather, in keeping with divine guidance, it used any method that is required. The tawfiq, good sense of guidance, is from the Almighty Allah, as He mentions in the Quran. They think that they lay you under an obligation by becoming Muslims. Say, lay me not under obligation by your Islam, rather Allah lays you under an obligation by guiding you to the faith if you are truthful. 49:17. Another verse reads, and were it not for Allah's grace upon you and His mercy, not one of you would have ever been pure. 24:21. A special characteristic of this school of thought is that its followers avoid debates of scholastic theology and doubts and uncertainties. They narrate traditions from the Imams of all al-Bayt, in which they have prohibited useless debates regarding religion, and they know that their opponents, despite having the same religion, are having differences in hundreds of issues. 28. In the traditions of all al-Bayt, nature is sometimes referred to as tinat, essence, and sometimes aqle madbu, agreeable intellect. For more information, please study collection of traditions. 29. Method of all al-Bayt, in understanding the principles of faith. In the debates on matters related to faith, the sources are of great importance. Previously we had stated that the sources of Islamic beliefs are the Quran and traditions. The main difference between the school of all al-Bayt and other schools is that the former under no circumstances leaves aside Quran and traditions and solves every problem through the guidance of the Quran and traditions. It is not prepared to accord preference to any personal desire or prejudice over the Quran and traditions. In the matter of deriving the practical laws also, this school considers the Quran and traditions to be the fundamental sources. That is the reason for these. 1. The depth of the views of this school of thought can be gauged from the fact that its followers never accord priority to personal deduction ijtihad over authentic texts nas, and they exercise care to see that the nas should be without contradiction, or if it is present, it should not negate the meaning of the text. Other sects are not very particular about texts. There are even some schools that are seen to resort to weak reasonings in trying to free themselves from the obligation of following texts. His Eminence, Amir al-Mu'minin, said to Harith ibn Haut, indeed you have not yet recognized the truth, then how can you recognize the people of truth, and you have not yet recognized falsehood, then how can you recognize the people of falsehood? 32. In the school of all al-Bayt, nothing is accorded priority over nas, subject to the condition that the nas should be absolute and is related by a large number of narrators. Mutawatir. This is the fundamental requirement for Islamic beliefs because conjectures and possibilities cannot establish fundamental principles of faith. Keeping in view the style of the followers of all al-Bayt, the Salafi group must also reform their attitude, because they rely on weak or solitary traditions with regard to their beliefs, and they are very fanatical about their school of thought. Based on some weak narrations, they accuse some Muslims to be infidels. They should not be merely fond of traditions but must also distinguish the traditions by evaluating their respective authenticity, generality, particularity, and ambiguity. They should also research the antecedents of the narrators. 3. The Islamic beliefs can be divided into two types: essential and academic. Essentials are those that if one denies any of them, one goes out of the pale of Islam. For example, belief in monotheism, Tawheed, prophethood, Nubuwwah, and Judgment Day, Qiyamah. They are called Dururiyat-e-Din, essentials of religion. The academic beliefs mean those in which there may be need for research and evidence, and in which there is difference of opinion among the leaders of different sects. Thus, those who deny the essentials are infidels, whereas one who denies academic principles of faith is not. 4. Analogy and personal discretion are not allowed in matters of beliefs. 5. The school of all al-Bayt also believes that the demands of intellect are according to authentic texts, subject to the condition that both of them should be considered in an objective manner, and that a mere possibility should not be presented as a certainty. Clear logic should not be replaced with weak text, and authentic and widely related narrations should not be given the same weightage as a solitary report. 6. All such inferences and deductions are unlawful, and they aim to spread heresies. 7. Based on absolute proofs, the school of all al-Bayt considers all the prophets and the 12 Imams to be infallible, and when something is proved to be from them, it is obligatory to believe in it. A jurisprudent mujtahid can reach a correct decision on jurisprudence, but it is also possible for him to err, even though if errs in doing so, while he has fulfilled all the requirements for research in jurisprudence, he is excused. 8. Traditionists are present among the Ummah. But so are those who are inspired divinely, and those who have true dreams. Through these channels they perceive realities, but all these matters need proofs. In matters of faith and practice they also have a position, but conditions are prescribed for that. 9. If a debate, held with piety, good manner and decorum, is intended to spread enlightenment, recognition of truth and to promote beliefs, it is worthy of praise. But to hold a debate only to show off one's knowledgeableness is despicable. During a debate, one should never say anything that one is not certain of. 10. The school of al-Bayt dislikes heresies and anything that is an innovation bid'ah, that is promoted in the name of religion, while it is not from religion. Some people consider